Welcome to the ENSPIRES podcast. I'm your friend and your host, Jess M. Culler, and I have a real treat for you today. We are back in studio with another live guest, and I'm excited. Actually, I either met you by accident or by divine appointment, and I pretty much think that it's divine appointment because we were actually in the airport. We were both going to the IMC, which is the International Maxwell Conference. I think I was going back I was really just going for the personal growth day. That may have been whenever you were going to get certified.
That was my first time, yes.
Yeah, so it was like 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then, so we got to talk then, and I say we got to talk. I was sitting there doing me things where I was inputting the entire conference itinerary in my Google Calendar because that's what I do. And I guess you just saw the conference itinerary just kind of sitting there beside me, and you were like, hey, are you going? Mm-hmm. So it was one of those where I think by divine appointment, we were sitting beside each other, got to talk a little bit then. And like I said, 2 years ago. And then last year we saw each other again. We went back to the IMC. That was in August. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like whenever God puts someone in your filter like that, like at the conference, you don't know this, but it was like every time you walked in a room, I could spot you from a distance. Like I didn't.
That's my shiny bald head.
Well, every time I would turn around, I'd be like, there's Jeff. Oh, there's Jeff. Like it was like, instead of like, where's Waldo? It was like, where's Jeff?
That's right.
But it's like God puts you in my filter. So it was like every time I walked in a room, I was like, oh, there he is. And I kind of feel like when God does that, you're either meant to bless or be blessed. So I'm excited to have you today because either I'm here to bless you or you're here to bless me, or maybe we're just here to bless each other. But so for everyone, this is, let's see, let me give you like all the accolades here because you're a fellow Maxwell Leadership Certified team member. You're the owner of Coastal Leadership Coaching.
That's right.
And you are also a newly published author. So Jeff Williamson, everybody, thank you so much for being here, Jeff.
Happy to be here.
This is going to be fun. So, I mean, other than those few occasions that we've met each other and had a few minutes to exchange pleasantries and hey, how are you? I see you a little bit on social media.
Yeah.
So I get to keep up with you a little bit there, but I'm excited today because I want to know more about you and what you're doing, what you've done, which is writing a book. So we're definitely going to get into that. Yeah. So I'm just excited to really let you get started. Kind of tell me, where you are. And if something easy to give you a prompt, tell me about Make Me Coaching or anything like that.
So you just mentioned now been officially published for about, I guess, beginning of October now. So it's just kind of funny to go on Amazon and I'll go in there and say, hey, how are my stars looking? And I've got 5 out of 5. So and thanks, Dad, for that, by the way. Right. No, but it's cool to see people that, we've been so blessed in our lives. And there have been people that have, instilled great value and just different wisdoms to where my heart is to try to pay it forward in a sense, like the Starbucks, you're going in line, someone pays for your coffee kind of thing. So I thought, being that I love writing and I've always loved to write, let's try to put this in written format. And so that's been where a lot of my energy has been put into play. Yeah. We're both certified leadership coaches. So with Coastal Leadership Coaching, try to work with the community, even online community, just different people that just need a little bit of reorganization of thought, maybe need a little bit of hope in their life, just things that they might not be seeing because they have their own lens that might be a little murky some days.
Okay, so wait, so take me back because you haven't always been in coaching.
No.
So, and especially not owning a coaching company.
Right.
So take me back just a little bit further because you've been in corporate world, you've traveled a lot, I just know this from reading your book. What kind of led you into the coaching profession in general?
Well, even my first job, McDonald's, I taught people how to use the cash register. So, I mean, I've always had that desire for efficiencies and for mentoring, even at 16. And not to mention, I got 10 more cents an hour. So that was good. But, it's always just been in my heart to try to lead people and to lead them well. In the book, I even mentioned that my wife, she almost passed away with COVID around, mid 2020.
Yeah.
And that was awful, but it was kind of the idea that, and I'm unapologetic Christian. So, the Bible talked about in parable form that there were these guys that had 2 talents and 5 talents, and they went and they doubled those talents down because they used God's gifts that they had. They used that unique talent that they had, and they just further developed, and God was pleased with that. It says, with this little I gave you, I'm going to double this, and so you can go out and bless more people. And there was the one guy that had the 1 talent. He was so worried, so preoccupied about how and what and which way he should go. He buried the talent. And And he said, "You evil and wicked servant." And I certainly don't want to hear that. So, whether it be in finance or in conversation, building relationships, I've always just had that desire to want to try to bless other people as I've been blessed myself.
Yeah, no, I love that story too. Yeah, I agree. So I was going to save it a little bit later, but I have a lot of questions about it.
Sure.
I know we're going to talk a lot about your book, but I just want to highlight it here. So it is Still Marinating, turning your journey into your legacy. So still a shameless plug there. And how long have you had the coaching company? Was that something relatively new?
Yeah, that's the beginning of this year.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, just with kind of how things work with my wife and how she wasn't doing well, it was time to really get moving and kind of, use those gifts and kind of put that forward, and just the radical idea of just maybe we should go into and actually make an LLC out of this. And, that's just to keep the government happy. It's not to be this get-rich scenario. Just try to bless other people as I've been richly blessed. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, and I have a business coach. I do coaching. So it's one of those things where I see so much value in it.
That's right.
I mean, even as a coach, I'm right now currently not, I guess professionally, if someone wanted to pay me, sure, I could take money for it. But it's one of those things where it's I get to coach, especially the other ladies that's in my office. And it's one of those things where it's I don't know if I'm truly blessing them or if the whole time I'm coaching, it's more just as I'm processing it, so those questions and hearing their thoughts and how they process and just helping them move forward. The whole process of what it is, I think, was it Valerie Burton that maybe said, I'm not digging for dirt, I'm digging for gold.
That's right.
I always love that. And I think about that with coaching where it's I'm not digging for dirt, I am digging for gold. You've got gold inside of you and I want to help you find it. So
yeah, it's like I said, just a lot of times people just don't have they just need a little bit of reorganization of thought, and they have it inside of them. But it's, Mark Cole even talks about, what are some radical thoughts that you can go after? Jim Collins talks about your BHAG goals, things that are just radical. And, sometimes you just need the encouragement and accountability. And that's another part that we can, as coaches, bring into the grouping. But I agree, too. I'm coached by two people also because I need to be filled, too. So I don't want to just plateau out. So
yeah, I love that. So, okay. I told him that I have lots of questions, but he can talk about whatever he wants. But I do want to go into this because throughout your book, you share a lot about yourself. This is such a good, and I think even in, you talk about it's being kind of in parable format and, kind of being able to talk through your own experiences and the leadership nuggets that you even talk about from what you've experienced. I enjoyed this a lot. It was a very quick read for me too. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I don't know if y'all can see this, but I'm this kind of person. People make fun of me all the time. He's like, oh, it's highlighted. And I was like, well, yeah, because I read it. Does not everyone highlight their books? I got notes on the side.
Wow.
Is that not what people do? So anyway, I enjoyed it a lot. So if it's good with you, I kind of want to talk about a few things, some notes. And actually, he has reflection questions throughout it. And I love that. I love to read a chapter. I love to have reflection questions. I always answer them because I'm well, they're in here for reflection. I might as well answer them. So I answered a lot of them myself, but I also thought that a few of them were probably good questions to ask you here today.
Sure.
And I don't want to give away too much because obviously people, you want to get the book, obviously. So, but I kind of want to roll through some of that. With all the experiences that you have in here, is there any one sort of defining moment in your life that you kind of attribute to being the biggest turning point?
I'll say in the book I talked about, and it's just kind of an affirmation, I guess. I'm 6'3" now. I was 6'4". You shrink when you get older. My wife keeps telling me, so it's pretty awesome. But I was born with a basketball in my hand. I always just played basketball and just enjoyed it. And I lived in Flint, Michigan for a long time, and just, you went to school, you played basketball, you went to bed, rinse and repeat. Right. So when I would move around, first thing we'd find a church, we'd find a band I can play in within the church, and then I'd try to find some sort of rec basketball league. In the fall time, I'd play football. But basketball was my main thing. So fast forward, I was in this 40 and older league. And that was the first time that they actually had it, deemed, hey, you're actually getting older now.
Right.
And it's funny too.
Extra grace league.
Yeah, it was. But it at the same time, there was some college level players that still were, whipping my butt. But it's just good because I'm big. So I'll just stay in the middle and I'll block their shots and all that kind of stuff. But, I think it was the second or third game, one of the players blew out his knee. And the first thing I said, well, let's pray about it. And they were kind of confused because, some of the fellows that were out there in practice were maybe not church, and one of the guys we practiced with had a little monitor on his ankle, so they had some issues with the law, but I mean, just great people. It doesn't matter, their background sort of thing. And you might see I have 10 different tattoos, so I mean, I guess I kind of speak their language some, and I'm relatable. So all that to being said, one of the players, his dad passed away, and it was just a super somber moment for the entire team and that kind of thing. And he wasn't a church guy, but he said, I'd really like it if you could, lead the eulogy service, if you could kind of present these things, because I was what he knew as a connection. And it was that moment there where I'm like, wow, this is pretty incredible, where if you follow what your calling is, if you follow just kind of what skill sets you have and how you've been, blessed, these are moments that can present themselves where you can have that ripple effect and bless other people in such an awesome way. And so I got to do that. And, I certainly, first time I've ever done that, and who knows if that's my last, but it was just an awesome time where I could also, kind of tell them a little bit more about salvation and get to talk to a group of people that I never had the opportunity to. So that was pretty awesome. So that, to me, it was a good confirming moment that, wow, this is what I should be doing right now.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think it's one of those where, especially as Christians, we kind of go, okay, yeah, obviously I'm a Christian, but when those opportunities come up, it's kind of like, oh, we don't know what to do. Let's do. And it's one of those where it's like, God will open those opportunities, and then it's your choice to really, you talk about the power to choose in here, but it's like your choice to see that as an opportunity to really say, like,
that's right.
Hey, like, yeah, I've never done it before, but I will. I will do it.
Throw some needles against the wall, see what sticks. That's fine.
Exactly.
100%.
Oh my gosh. Well, so here's this moment, and now moving forward, do you find that it's a lot easier? Do you find like your RAS has changed, and now it's like your filter is kind of like really looking for those opportunities, or like how did that really kind of?
Well, I'll say my awareness is maybe ever so, I guess, more aware. It's like when you're buying a vehicle, it's like, I want to buy a black truck. Maybe I'll get a Ford. So you pay more attention to Ford trucks. Those same trucks have always been there as you're driving up and down 501 or wherever you're at, but it's just you're that much more aware. So sometimes it gets exhausting because I'm trying to stay as aware as I can and intentional in the moment as I can with moments that would be presented. But the more aware that I tend to be, I even have on my phone at 7:30 every morning, it says, be the person that others would want to follow. So it's like my morning reminder at 9:30. It's like, find somebody that you can invest in today. So it's just keeping me dialed in to always plug into these things. And it could be at a gas station, which that's happened before, where you just kind of share life too. You can be your waitress or waiter, and so. And my wife, she's like, okay, I'm the guy that talks at church where she wants to go and I'm still talking with everybody.
Yeah.
She's like, you've never met a stranger. I'm like, well, that's okay because we need to share life, so why not? So
yeah. Yeah, no, the IMC that I went to, that I just went for the personal growth day. Like I'd already gotten certified, and it was before you could really go before mentorship. Yeah. So I hadn't joined mentorship yet. And so I was really just kind of going to do that. I actually had an appointment in Tampa. So it was a really quick, call it a drive-by, inspiration filling moment for me. But this was the year that they did the reception on Sunday night. And so it was one of those moments where I was like, oh my God. It's so emotionally draining for me to go out and be, because I'm the same way. I'm the talker. My husband's already in the car. He's waiting, and I'm like, da, 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 da. Yep. So anyway, it was the Sunday night, and I was kind of like, oh gosh, okay, God, I'm really tired. I really just like to lay here and watch television. I really don't want to, And for some odd reason, I went and I was like, you know what, Jessica, just grab a glass of wine, sit there and enjoy the band. Just be in be in the place. And so I ended up doing that. I ended up sitting beside a really, really fabulous woman. And it was one of those moments where she just kind of started talking. And it was that opportunity to sort of listen and hear. And I've never prayed over someone. I know that sounds weird. I've never prayed. I've never, the moment where it was here, let's pray about this. That, I hate to be that's just not something that I naturally normally did before this transformation in my life. And it was in that moment, she was saying all this stuff, and I just kind of said would you like for me to pray with you? And it was kind of I mean, I get chills even thinking about it. But she literally found me the next morning. We went to the faith, so the next day, and then we went to the faith service. And she found me before the faith service and said, "Hey, will you sit with me, during the faith service?" So I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And she got saved. And I was like, I don't know if that was her blessing or mine. Like, it was one of those where it was like I was such a small part of a larger plan that God had been doing. And it was just like, maybe I was like the last chisel in the piece. So it was just such a moment of blessing for me. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to make that about me, but you saying that just like inspired me about that story. And I understand, because it was kind of like I said, that was never a thought of normally I'd be like,
yeah,
they're there. So it was interesting how God kind of opens his doors and he allows us to be just his vessel to do stuff like that for others. And
I call that tricky Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when, as a leader, you typically have a pretty good idea of what should happen and kind of how you should go about this approach or that sort of thing. And it's not even a gender situation. It's just, but I'm the type A, so I kind of have my game plan. I know what's going to go on, and that's just the way it is. But what's funny, I say tricky Jesus because when I just know he's up there just laughing at me too, and that's cool because he's like, Jeff, you figure out that you don't know what you're doing in some of these cases, and I'm going to bless you 100 times more than you could even imagine. Yeah. So that's where things like that come into play, and just the ability to lead a eulogy service, or the things that when we're actually utilizing how we have been blessed and getting out of our own self-centric ways. I just kind of watch the magic happen. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, so you talk about, the self-awareness and kind of, making sure you're trying to put things in your path that'll keep you focused and intentional and reflective and self-aware. You actually used an analogy in your book that I say an analogy. I don't know if it's really an analogy. Anyway, but I thought it was very interesting, and it hit me in a place. Like, I'm so glad I read your book so I can tell you how your book has affected me. No, but you talk about basically gardening when you're growing a team, right? So it's like you have to constantly be in your garden. You have to constantly take out the weeds. Your garden will grow, but at the end of the summer, it's kind of like, what has it grown into? And this year in particular, for me, it was very tough because I'm still learning how to have a team. I'm used to being the girl that does it all herself. And so it was like we hit event season this year, and I kind of put my head down. I was like, hey, everybody, I'm going to need y'all to do your jobs. Practically what it is, but not exactly. But you know what? Just do your best. Figure it out. And it was like I kind of came up at the end of the season and was like, whoa, what kind of garden did I grow? And it was like, I loved that analogy because I thought that's kind of what happened. I have this garden and it is growing, but unless I'm in it, unless I'm taking out those weeds, unless I'm doing what I need to be doing, ugh. So I actually had this thought about that because you have such great thoughts through here, but is there any advice that you would give, maybe to other people, but let's just say advice to me, who is someone who's stuck in a space of working in the business and working on the business? Is there any type of leadership advice you could give to me in particular that's kind of stuck in that space and trying to figure out how to grow the garden and get rid of the weeds and I guess still be the gardener? I don't even know.
Yeah, no. And I love gardening too. You wouldn't know it from this past year. So it's a cause and effect and trial and error, I guess. But I can, even say that investment in time, it takes time. It takes the daily intentional action. So my gardening, though, and with my team and with people that I work with, my kids, whoever I have contact with, my people that are coaching clients, it's to enrich them through kind of what knowledge and wisdom that I received in my life, I guess. And that seems maybe a little arrogant, but it's if you take what you've learned, if you try to just stick with it and just say, well, here's what I have, and I'll be the voice of reason, and I'll be this person, I'll be that go-to guy, which I've done for a long, long, long time. I can know all the policies, I can know all the procedures, I can do everything. You're not enriching anybody, you're not growing your team, you're not training your replacement, so to speak. You're not making, it sounds like a crazy concept, but if you train your team so well that you can work yourself out of a job, so you can then do some of the other things that God has blessed you with here. And a lot of times it's still going to be within that organization, but it's going to have a different, feel and fit, but it's going to make it even that much stronger. That is kind of where I found and have found is a sweet space. So I kind of did a bit of a paradigm shift and said, I'm going to actually do some of these things that these books say. I'm going to have intentional time. I'm going to coach these people. I'm going to Liz Wiseman in the book of Multipliers talks about playing fewer chips. I'm going to make sure that, I understand this is what I would do, but let me hear what you have to say about these things. Let me hear about your approach, because a lot of times they're going to be even better than what I have. And then to quote John Maxwell, he has Mark Cole and a few other people he has in his life where in baseball, there's what's called a full count with 3 balls and 2 strikes. And that's kind of this tense moment as a batter where you're like, I'm not sure what I should, but he says that in some cases, though, you don't need to have that certain sense of being tense, because it's actually a 3-1 count. So you can take one more strike before it's where you really need to jump into action or really say, hey, how is this coming? Or in some of these situations. So the more I've recognized that I do need to prune, I do need to weed the garden some, but I still need to water it. I still need to, make sure it's being fertilized, make sure all these different things are happening. Not to mention my neighbor, if he sees this, his garden is 38 times better than mine. So I want to look kind of like his too. But, it's just the idea that the more I found that if I'm being as intentional in that and just try to not just have it be the Jeff show, I've seen a lot better results.
Oh, yeah. I hear that. I'll just take that one right here and put it in my heart. Oh, yeah, that's hard for me. I mean, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Like it's very hard for me because I want to, do it, and I want to do it myself, and I want to do it right. And and it's like no one else can do it the way that I do it. And yeah. Yeah,
you could ask my wife.
It's funny.
She married the type.
As I read through here, I was like, oh, like I think he and I are a lot alike. It's funny because I actually underline a couple times because you say like I'm an overthinker and I'm I'm a this, I'm a that, and actually you mentioned having an addictive personality.
Oh yeah.
Which is funny because I say I'm a recovering stress addict. Like I used to be addicted to stress. Like I loved it, and like so many people are like stress is so bad, and I'm like yes it is, but I loved it, like the endorphins and just everything that I would get when I'd wake up and create all this stress. But you talk a lot about like the positives of having that kind of like all-in personality. So when we say addictive, it's not like addicted to all the drugs and all the bad things. It's just this personality of just going all in. Everything's like all in for you. And I was interested to hear that because you, like I said, you've got a lot of positives that you mention about it. And when I hear that stuff, I think, what were some of the struggles that you had to really sort through with that type of personality to get to the other side to see where they are that positive side?
And I'll say my newest addiction is disc golf.
Oh, okay.
It's so fun. I'm so bad, but
that's funny.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, anyway, I got some good friends that help me out with that. But anyway, having that personality and having that extreme drive and just trying to always shoot for perfection. It's the recognition that you're going to miss a shot every once in a while. These things are going to happen. And believe me, this is one of these things that I have to say, Jeff, you're going to miss this shot. These things are going to happen. I have to say it out loud some days because I need to hear it more than probably most people. But it's okay, but what did you learn? In the book, I talked about my leadership coach, actually. He was a professional skeet shooter guy. I'm not sure what that sounds pretty technical,
good to me.
Right?
Yeah, I like it.
And he would hit like 95% of his targets. But to be in the upper echelon is like 98% or 99 or whatever it was. So he had to actually change his grip, change different things. And he went from 95 down to, 85, let's say, but then he kept working his way even better. And Tiger Woods did the same thing. He had to relearn his golf swing to get better. But it's understanding that there are going to be times where you fail, but you have to recognize that you're not, as long as you don't quit, that's fine. Failing means you're learning. Quitting means you're done. So it's recognizing there's growth in those moments of failing and saying, okay, well, let me not repeat this maybe. Let's figure out what it is that I can pick up and what I might be able to even help lead others and say, don't do these things because this is what I've learned. Okay,
so I have many questions about failure because I love to talk about that one. But before we jump off your addictive personality traits, is it just more so for yourself, or whenever have you found yourself in certain times with a team where it's kind of like you're kind of pushing that? How do you keep it in check?
Yes. Again, great book, Liz Wiseman, Multipliers. There's what's called being an accidental diminisher, where, I'll be like, all right, guys, let's do all these things. And and just and I'll just go through all this stuff. but it's just my idea. It's my understanding. It's my just, and it doesn't allow anybody's opinions. It doesn't allow their ability to fail and grow. It just, they're going after and that's what a micromanaging is. Yes. And that's no bueno. So the idea is recognizing I am an accidental diminisher. We all are. And there's a great quiz you can even take that's in reference to her book to see how we do. And as we're taking this to how we can continue to become better and better. And I'm thankful that my score is getting lower and lower, which is a good thing.
No, I'm writing this down.
Oh, yeah. But I mentioned before playing less chips. I talk a lot, but I'm reminded that God gave me 2 ears, 1 mouth. And I know it's like that cliche joke, but I need to understand that. I was the guy that had my response on my hip before the question was even, or conversation point was even done. So I try to become a better active and engaged listener. It's someone that was more in the moment with kind of what people were sharing because they felt value. They felt it was good. Which
is funny you say that because I actually took it out. I have to see where I, because it was something you called yourself and I thought it was really funny. You called yourself a...
Covering chatterbox?
Yes! And you said that was one of your area of opportunities, which I enjoy that, I enjoy saying it's an area of opportunity versus being like a problem or an obstacle, right? So it's an area of opportunity to become a better communicator. What's been like the thing that helped you sort of take those steps to being a better communicator?
So I did something very crazy and I opened up one of those Survey Monkeys.
Okay.
And surveymonkey.com, you send off these questions and you get these responses back anonymously. So I sent them off to my team. Hey, question 1, do I interrupt you? Question 2, do I? And you talked about a glass of wine. I was like, I needed the bottle. I'm like, y'all, there's just so much that I learned, but.
This is coming from HR. It's certainly not coming from me.
But it was in such a place though, that I was glad that I heard these things and that if you don't know, you don't know. And that's one of the things that otherwise I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing and feeling great about my life. But if you allow your circle of awareness and your area of influence to open up to people that you might not have had in, but people that you respect, that's where growth comes in. So I was just really kind of like, okay, I just need to slow down a little bit. I need to back down. I need to stop being that chatterbox.
Yeah. Okay, so have you done your DISC profile? I'm surely you have. The leadership, that Maxwell DISC, it's a slight difference than like the standard DISC, but
it's been a while.
Okay. I just wondered if you had done yours
Not recently, Maxwell, so.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not either. I actually went to a Boss Babe Believers retreat and with my program advisor, she and her partner did it. And so that was a part of what they did because I had not done it yet either. And it was interesting because I think it was the first time I ever answered questions like truthfully, which was kind of hard. Like, as a leader, you feel like there's certain things that you should be and do and say as a leader. And so when I did DISC a long time ago, I think I answered it that way. And I think I came up with like an ID, which makes sense. I think the title they put out was like Persuader. When I answered honestly this time, I ended up being a CI, which is like, it was called the assessor. So my leadership style is the assessor. I actually have a very hard time making decisions because I want to know everybody's opinion. I want to know what everybody thinks about it. And then I will assess everyone's, and then I will say, this is the decision based on everybody's. I don't even know why I got into that. I really wanted to know what yours was. Because I feel like you and I are so much alike with the type A-ness of us.
I can say I'm more into the Enneagram, I guess, metric where...
I know that a little bit.
So I'm an 8-wing 7, but that's where if I'm in you can have being a healthy 8-wing 7, not so healthy, and then a not at all healthy. And being an 8-wing 7 is just like it's a leader, it's a driver, it's the one that's kind of doing all these things. But what's interesting about it here, and there's differentiating opinions here. One person I know that's going to watch this is going to give me hassle about that, and that's fine. But I am of the opinion, as are a few other people though, that and the idea of the Enneagram, there's 9 different total character traits that people are kind of dictated about, and then they've strengths, strength zones. But as you become healthier in your space, you start to mimic several other categories as well. So I took it again. Everything was calm and everything was good. Dogs weren't barking. I took it again, and I was within like 1 point of 5 different scores there. So I think, to show you're changing.
Yeah.
I think kind of the same idea though.
Yeah. I took that I was a 3. That was
3-2?
I was a 3. Can't remember what my like wings were,
okay.
but I just remember it was the achiever, and I was like high. Like there were a few others underneath it, but I was very high in the 3.
One of mine too.
Yeah. And when I read the description, I was like, my gosh, that is me. Like I actually felt like someone had like been watching me in the bushes and had been writing out my life. It was
my buddy's wife will send me texts about what they think I am, and they'll just send them off, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, I enjoy. It's funny because event planning. It's one of those things where a big team building thing to do with companies and corporate especially is to have them all do like a disc, Enneagram, do something like that, and then bring everybody together, and then you learn about each other. So you will learn about
how to lead and 100%.
And it's so solid too. Like I want to get disc certified through Maxwell just so I can do it with my team because I want to know. I have what I think they are, but I want to know for sure like what it is, because I feel like if I could understand how they operate, how they tick, then I can lead better, I can follow better, I can just be a better team member. So
just like the love languages of old, kind of.
Yes. What's your love language?
I'm a words of affirmation and a physical touch.
Okay. My husband and I are the same. So we're physical touch and quality time.
Okay.
Where we struggle is in that 3 spot where he is acts of service and I'm words. And then but acts is my lowest and words is his lowest. So in that 3, I will say what holds us together is that the top 2 but the 3 we have to work on daily.
But that's the intentional side, because my wife is acts of service and quality time, where those aren't mine. They're still very nice.
Yes.
But, as I want her to say, hey, how nice and handsome I am, and just rub my shoulder every once in a while, she's just like, I just want to sit next to you, and I'm like, well, that's okay, but
she's like doing the dishes, and you're like, honey, I get it, you love me, come hold me.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you talk about your wife, you've talked about her here, you talked about her in your book. I've heard you mention her many, many times, and in the book you say you've been with her now for like over 30 years. You've been married for 25.
25, and then this month was 31 years that we actually met in high school. She was 14, I was 16. Yeah, crazy.
So then, of course, the question that I have to ask is, what's the secret?
Well, we've been blessed. Both sets of our parents have been married for over 50 years, so fantastic examples. But in our marriage, in anything, it's the idea John Maxwell talks about, if your why is strong enough, your way will present itself on how you're going to go about ways to make things better. So it's to stay focused, stay intentional, stay plugged into how I can try to love my wife, how I can try to lead well for my team, how I can do X, Y, Z. So no secret, it's just daily plugs of try to serve well. The Bible says to try to outdo one another in servanthood, and that's one of the things that I will fail with often. But I have my mission statement on my left arm.
I love it.
That I have it on the back of the book even, to love well, learn well, and serve well. And it just, while I'll fail at that all the time, I'm still going to have that as an area of growth, to recognize that, to love my wife better, to lead my team better, I need to do these things.
Yeah. So what he's talking about, because I'm not quite done with that, but since you've mentioned it, yes, he has a tattoo of quite literally his mission statement. He talks about it in the book, but it is just what he said. It's love well, learn well, serve well. I love that. When did you decide, like, this is my mission statement for life?
So I was with my leadership coach, and we were all tasked about, what's something that you can do if you do your life mission statement. I think we're doing Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and just kind of how to be just really mindfully aware of what the future looks like and ways you can. So he says, make a mission statement. And I was kind of doing something. It got to be like this long thing, and you start shorten it. And mine got to be 6 words and happened to fit on my left arm. And so I'm like, hey,
Hey, I like
why
that.
not?
No, I love that. Actually, it's funny because I was reading the book, and of course, like you mentioned it. So I put it on there. I'm like, you have your mission statement tattooed on your arm. So yeah, that's funny. Quite a few chapters, the one about, making lemonade, and just, like I said, I've mentioned it before, you talk about the power to choose. And it's like, there are some things in life that you can't choose, but what you can always choose is how you react to it. And it's kind of like that same thing in marriage, where it's like, every day it's a choice to love. It's a choice to try to, fill up their love tank, or it's a choice to not. Like, it's a choice, and you have that power of choice. And so many times we forget, but it's like remembering, like, wait, I do what? It's like, what do I have control of in here? What do I not have control of in here? And it's like, what you do have control over, that's where that choice lies.
That's right.
So I feel like I'm either your amen choir. I don't know. I'm just like, oh, and you said this, and you said that, and I love this, you said that. I mean, I just, like some of this, awesome. I just wrote little nuggets where I was like, I love how you talk about convenience can cost us. Like, so many times we just wanted the easy way. Mm-hmm. You just wanted to be easy, and I just wanted to just fall into place. But, the reality is that may actually cost us way more in the long end. Like,
that's right.
Yeah. Okay, me and your book. I mean, I need to stop talking so people will go buy it. I just really enjoyed it. And so you talk about the story of the hermit crab. Okay, right? Okay, yeah. You're smiling because you're like, and I thought it was very interesting because when I think of hermit crabs, I think about a recluse. I think of someone who like never comes out of their shell, that hides. Mm-hmm. And your take on that was very different. And it was like, maybe just tell us a little bit about that. So maybe I'm not the one like being like, oh, and he said this and he said that.
So we were on a vacation, and it's funny too, because in the same weekend, my kids bought Myrtle Beach lifeguard sweatshirts, and we moved here like, I don't know, 6 months later after that, and my daughter wore it to school. I'm like, I don't think that they're gonna, but that's fine. She marches the beat of her own drum and is awesome. One of the purchases though, are these hermit crabs, and I think they're interesting. You don't have to do much with them, and I don't have to do anything with them, so that was good for me.
Right.
But I was like, oh yeah, we'll buy the cage and the rocks and all the things. And they all had these cool shells that they had painted up, so that's how my kids say, well, I want the one with the Superman helmet on, his thing. And the other one, well, this one's pink, so I'm like, okay, so we each got them their own thing. We go up to the checkout, the salesperson, and I'm like, okay. He comes up to me and says, hey, is there anything else that you need? I think we're fine. We're buying $100 worth of hermit crabs or whatever it is. That's more than we intended. I was, well, you need to buy a bigger shell. I think we're fine here. They don't need decoration in their cage. They're a crab. They're going to probably die in 2 minutes. I don't know. So he says, no, I really don't think you get it. And I said, okay, well, let's kind of talk about this. What don't I get about the hermit crab? Mm-hmm. And he says, the hermit crab only understands, where they're at right now, but they see that other larger shell. So they had the Superman shell, might have been 3 inches. Captain America might have been 5. I don't know. So, but he knows that is his goal. That is his next mode of operandum, is all driven to, I'm going to go and get bigger, and I'm going to just be more awesome, and I'm going to eventually go into this larger shell. That if you don't have that shell, though, he just dies and starts to plateau, and that's all it is. And it's kind of like this sad thing about these hermit crabs, but it was so profound thinking that if you have that, I say Captain America, but if you have this, I'm not even a superhero fan. If you have this larger thing to go after, if you have this thing to keep your mind plugged into, and something, it's going to give you life. It's going to hopefully bring life to others around you to help encourage you to those things. But I just thought, like, this little crab that we're spending all this money on now, we spent an extra $5 for that larger shell. It's like, what a cool lesson, though, that the hermit crab, this little guy here, understands that he needs to go over here, and he's going to only do that. His only life is to understand that this is what he needs to do. It's like, I need to follow the hermit crab. I need to understand that, those days that I want to just sit on my chair and I want to just get a plate of nachos and just call it a day. I need to make sure that maybe I should go out for a run. Maybe I might write a little bit more in my second book, which I'm working on now. So
I was gonna say, what's your next? What's your next hermit shell?
That's because again, it goes back to that first couple of questions. God bless us with certain talents. I want to try to double those. I want to try to multiply. I want to have that ripple effect, because to be a leader is to influence, and to influence well. You can't influence if you're bottled up inside your own hermit shell crab.
So true.
Yeah.
So Julie, I was going to say, what does your next hermit shell look like? Which is actually a question that you ask in here. I thought that is such a great, but you had to explain the story before the question would make any sense. But like, what does your next hermit shell look like?
So the next book I'm working on, it's taking the idea, we've never done it that way before, and I'm dismantling that.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, we hear all the time, just wow, and people just kind of fall to just the idea that, well, or the majority isn't doing something, so I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing here. And I don't want to give too much.
I know, don't give too much away,
but this one, I mean, I'd say I wasn't excited about this book because this is my heart. This is just, if you read through this here, you're going to realize how crazy of a person I am.
I realized how much we had in common.
I mean,
don't be calling yourself crazy now.
Yeah. It's not you, it's me.
Oh, okay.
But this new one here, it's really exciting because after the first one, after you kind of get out of that wave of your imposter syndrome and all these different things, it just starts to flow even quicker. So this has been, just the writing in general though, it's just been an awesome experience.
You make a statement in here. It says, I humbly consider the impact that was made through these experiences that you have written about in here. And I loved that because it's like, even with this podcast, I'm just like, for the 5 people that may listen to it, like just and I'm like, you know what, sometimes that humble hope that maybe it makes an impact in someone's life that you may never, ever see, just that humble hope really is sometimes the whole reason for it.
Yeah.
And I just love that you said that because I was like, yeah, just like this humble hope of impact.
And that's something I think we all need to hear every single day because we wake up and we start to, our life for that day and say, how we're going to try to be part of this world. Are we going to try to be something that's going to be awesome or just kind of sit in the chair and eat nachos? I mean, nachos are good, but, the idea though that you might not always see how you're going to impact somebody. You're not going to always see the positive impact you have. And that's where I think there's a difference between goal setting and legacy minded, where at my eulogy, I want to be known as somebody that led well, that loved well, that served well, that learned well, but at the same time, made a difference in other people's lives, that my kids were loved well, that my wife, that she felt, important and cared after, that I added value to people in our community and to our church and that kind of thing. But your goals will add up as you achieve certain goals and do certain things to work towards your legacy. But I think that's now just to recognize just how much impact and how much opportunity really is out there if you kind of wake up a little bit sometimes with the sleep out of your eyes and realize what's out there.
When people say to me like, oh, well, I don't know like what my purpose is. Like, I don't know what my mission is. I don't know. And I think it was actually in one of the classes from Valerie Burton and her coaching where it's like, I loved her kind of her definition of like what your purpose is. And it's like how are other people's lives better because you're in it? Lives, how are their lives better? That's your purpose. Like that's your mission. And I love all that together in a pretty bow. So, all right, I know we're kind of getting to the end here, but before I go into my rapid fire, I want to make sure, because truly, if y'all see all my questions, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, I do know one. And we talked about come back to it because you talked about failure, and you talk about failure quite a bit in your book. And we both kind of come from that mindset where it's like the cycle, right? Where it's like try, fail, learn, improve. So this is like that cycle of failure. Like this is what it looks like. What do you feel like has been maybe your most epic failure that has led to some of the most rewarding results? It's a tough one.
There's been so many.
Well, in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, is this too hard of a question on the spot? And I was like, I got faith in you.
I'll give one. So to be someone in this world too, I think that there has to be a little bit of swagger to you. You got to have a certain confidence and
certainly
not arrogance, but that's what I learned and learned well. I was over 4 states in my old life in one of my positions I had. And we were tasked to try out new products and then to talk about it to the rest of the company, which was 43 statewide. That was great to do. And I thought, yeah, man, this is cool. They finally, he goes, but you're going to have to present on this one product. That's fine. I can talk to anybody about anything. That's no big deal. So I had all my notes and all these things. I had one fact wrong though. So I didn't fact check it as well as I should. So I'm just kind of going out there like Dwight on The Office as he's presenting that one time talking, just banging my fist on the table. You know what I'm talking about? That? Yeah. Yes. And I'm like, this is all these things here. And y'all listen, this is all the cool things that we've done. And then I said, and here's that number. And I mentioned it. And, sometimes when your dog is they do like this with their head. And like and there's probably about 300-400 people in there. And about half of them kind of looked to their head. And I just kind of kept going and just finishing. And then they had their rapid fire questions. And they said, hey, can you say that again? Is this what you're telling? That's what it is. And I'm just very confident, very arrogant about it at this point in time. I just thought, and then my boss comes up and Jeff did a good job, but he did miss that one thing. And I was like, I said, yeah, you should check that next time kind of thing. Like, oh, you got me there. So it was just the idea that.
But how did that failure?
Well, I learned that arrogance that I had, that I was going down swinging too. I'm like, no, man, this is exactly what it is. And so I didn't argue with my boss though, but I mean, but
who's up here in the front giving the presentation? Are you?
No.
You. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But just that arrogance kind of started to trickle away a little bit when he said, "You're not right there," you know. And I said, "Well, my fault." But I learned though that I'm not always right. It's weird, you know.
What?
It's crazy. But it's things like that though, and you know, just in that approach, I was just banging my fist, thinking I was just what was up, and realizing even in that moment that if I came about it a little bit more humbly, if I came about it and say, you know what, let me just double check, or like humans do, not like I did. So that's something that I think has really paved a way and helped navigate a new great opportunity for me, though, in my role, or just as a husband or even as a father, that there are other opinions. You know, and that's kind of like when I went from a quantitative manager and quantitative leader to a qualitative person and a qualitative leader. So I can kind of really recognizing that there's so much more out there. There's, you know, we don't want to have all 8-wing 7s out there, because that would, you know, it'd be chaos. You need to have some my wife, a 5'6", the people that are just more empathic than I am in the cases. So it's.
I once said in one of my podcasts that God sometimes serves you a slice of humble pie, and sometimes He smacks the entire thing in your face.
It was right there.
It was a real pie in the face there.
It was a great experience, though, because I mean, without that, I would have, you know, kept going on.
I love that. That was a good one. Okay, you ready?
Sure.
Let's do this. Let's wrap this up. So this is rapid fire, and this is all about what inspires you. Okay. So just first thing to mind, don't overthink it. And you can explain it if you want, but you don't have to.
Okay.
Okay. What song inspires you?
Gratitude by Brandon Day. Brandon Lake. Jeez.
It's all right. Yes.
The pressure's on.
Oh, okay. What book inspires you? With the exception of this one.
And not to be, you know, corny and say the Bible, but I mean, you know, that's, I think from a leadership standpoint, Multipliers, Liz Wiseman, it's got so much in there.
Yeah, I'm going to put that one on my reader list. Okay. What person inspires you?
My dad.
You talk a lot about him in your book.
I signed his book, and I think, by the way, signing books is just ridiculous. I'm like, well, why do I sign your book? But people have asked
that. Was it going to be offered that he's going to have to sign mine before he leaves?
But I called him my leadership architect.
I love it.
He's done a lot of good things, and you know, and it's caused us to level up for sure.
Okay, what place inspires you?
Beach.
Yeah? Is that why y'all moved here?
I love the beach. We used to live in Asheville, and she lives in mountains. And in 25 years of marriage, we've moved 16 times.
Wow.
Yeah, but when I saw the beach, it just grabbed me. Just so it's good.
Yeah, I agree. And then here's your last one. You can take this any way you want. But what hope, thought, or quote inspires you?
I would say, and not to be cliche about, you know, what I have for my own mission statement, but to love well, learn well, and serve well. The more loving that somebody is, and the more that you're willing to learn, and that you're having the servanthood in mind and heart, you're going to be able to lead far, far better than you ever could imagine, and make the community a better place, like the Boy Scout motto. You know, you're going to just pay it forward. So that's what I would say. I
love that. I mean, you have it as your mission statement, but the reality is that for that to be something that you feel like you're going to be living every day for the rest of your life, like that should be what inspires you. So I'm glad it does.
So. I would hope, yeah, hopefully.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time today. This has been fabulous. And I hope I haven't given away the entire book because, like I said, I was very excited to ask all my questions, but I really enjoyed. Thanks for sharing your heart and your life and just your journey.
Yeah.
In this,
pleasure.
You're still marinating. And
That's right.
And all the links, all that fun jazz will be in the show notes. Is there any other place that I know I bought mine on Amazon, but I saw on social media it was in a bookstore.
Yeah, the downtown bookstore in downtown Conway now sells it. Our Next Chapter. So I like that they're calling it Our Next Chapter. It's kind of cool that their next phase in life is their next chapter, but it play on words with the book. But there's going to be a signing down there, I think January the 6th. I think that's a Saturday.
Okay.
So that'll be fun to do. So I got to gear up.
I know.
People are going to actually want me to sign this. So.
That's exciting.
But, yeah, no, it's been a blessing. Just thankful that I'm in the space.
Yeah. Well, I'm thankful you're in this space and in the studio with us. Thank you for your time today.
My pleasure, yeah.
Thank you to the listeners who I'm sure will tune in and enjoy this and be blessed just by everything you've said, but certainly your book, because they'll certainly buy that after they've seen it all.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening and be a part of the In Crowd. Until next time, we will see you then.